The space station hung like a massive silver wheel against the endless black of space. Its circular design reflected the light of three distant stars, creating a beacon of hope and cooperation that seemed to pulse with quiet energy. Inside this marvel of engineering, Ji-hoon Park adjusted his simple dark blue uniform and walked down a long corridor lined with holographic displays. Each display showed a different alien species going about their daily work. There were creatures with multiple arms sorting through complex data streams, beings made of what looked like living crystal discussing trade routes, and humanoid figures with skin in shades of blue and green checking communication networks. To an outsider, it might have seemed like chaos, but to Ji-hoon, it was harmony. Humans had become the galaxy's peacekeepers almost by accident. It started decades ago, when Earth first made contact with alien civilizations. While other species were quick to argue, fight, or break agreements, humans seemed different. They listened. They understood. They found solutions where others saw only problems. Ji-hoon remembered the stories his grandfather used to tell, how the first human diplomats approached alien conflicts with patience and creativity, how they would spend days, sometimes weeks, talking through complex issues. Other species were surprised. They expected humans to be like them, aggressive, demanding, always looking for an advantage. But humans were different. The space station's central meeting room was about to host another critical negotiation. The Kirtal Confederacy had a long-standing border dispute with the Crystal Collective. Most diplomatic teams would have given up long ago. But Ji-hoon and his team saw things differently. He entered the circular room. Around a massive round table sat representatives from 6 different species. Each looked unique. Some had multiple eyes. Some had skin that seemed to change color with their emotions. Some wore complex breathing apparatus. Ji-hoon took his seat, his hands folded calmly in front of him. "We understand the complexity of your situation," Ji-hoon began, his voice steady and clear. "The border between the Kirtal territories and the Crystal Collective has been a point of tension for over 200 standard galactic years. But tension doesn't mean conflict must be inevitable." The Kirtal representative, a tall being with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished metal, clicked and whistled. A translation device converted the sounds into human speech. "We have tried talking for centuries. Nothing changes." Ji-hoon smiled. It was a small, patient smile that seemed to hold more understanding than any words could express. Nothing changes because no one has truly listened. Not completely. What the alien representatives didn't know was the extensive preparation behind every human diplomatic mission. Years of cultural study, psychological analysis, economic projection, and strategic planning went into each negotiation. Humans appeared soft and gentle, but their approach was razor-sharp and deeply intelligent. The Crystal Collective's representative, a being made of what looked like living crystal that shifted and moved like water, turned its multifaceted head. "Explain," it said simply. And so Ji-hoon began. He pulled up holographic maps that showed not just current borders, but historical migration patterns, resource distribution, cultural exchange routes, and potential future developments. He didn't just present facts. He told a story that showed how both the Kirtal Confederacy and the Crystal Collective could benefit from a different approach. Hours passed. The other species listened. They argued. They discussed. But beneath Ji-hoon's calm exterior, a complex mind was at work. Every word was carefully chosen. Every piece of information strategically revealed. What no one in that room realized was that this negotiation was more than just a border dispute. It was another piece of a much larger puzzle. Humans were collecting data, understanding strengths and weaknesses, building a comprehensive map of galactic politics and potential conflicts. The nice humans were always watching, always preparing. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. As the meeting concluded with the first real progress in centuries, Ji-hoon allowed himself a small private smile. Just another day at the office. 3 standard galactic months after the successful border negotiation, Everything changed. The alliance of the Kirtal Confederacy, the Nexus Dominion, and a crystalline collective met in a secret location deep within an asteroid belt. Their meeting was carefully hidden from human observation, or so they believed. Admiral Tarek of the Kirtal Confederacy stood before a holographic display. His metallic skin gleamed under the harsh artificial lights. "Humans have become too powerful," he clicked and whistled. The translation device converted his words with mechanical precision. "Their diplomatic influence reaches into every corner of the galaxy. We must act." The Nexus Dominion's representative, a being with skin that looked like shifting clouds, nodded slowly. "They mediate every conflict. They understand every culture. They find solutions where we see only problems. This cannot continue." Outside the meeting chamber, a small probe, no larger than a human fist, floated silently. Its systems were designed to look like simple space debris. In reality, it was capturing every single sound, every single data transmission. The probe belonged to Yuna Kim, the strategic mastermind behind human intelligence gathering. The plan was simple but devastating. The three empires would systematically target human colonies in the outer rim of explored space. They would use complex legal maneuvers, economic pressure, and carefully calculated territorial disputes to strip human settlers of their rights. The first target was the mining colony on Epsilon 9, a small planetoid rich in rare minerals. The colony had been established decades ago, with full legal approval from the Galactic Council. Humans had transformed the harsh, rocky world into a thriving settlement. Families lived there. Children were born there. It was home. On a quiet morning, ships from the Crystalline Collective appeared in the planet's orbit. They didn't attack. Instead, they presented legal documents that claimed the entire planet belonged to them. The documents were complex, filled with thousands of pages of technical language. Most species would have been confused. Most would have been overwhelmed. But the human colonists were different. Lena Park, no relation to Jihoon, was the colony's administrator. When the first communication came, she didn't panic. She didn't get angry. She simply began to analyze. "They've made a mistake in section 247. Subsection C," she told her team. Her voice was calm. Her mind was already working through the problem. "Look at how they've interpreted the resource extraction protocols from the Galactic Trade Agreement of 2356. The human response was precisely measured. They didn't call for military intervention. They didn't flee. Instead, they began to document every communication, every legal claim, every piece of evidence." Back on the space station, Jihoon Park received the first reports. His eyes narrowed slightly, the only sign of the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. He began to prepare a diplomatic response, knowing that this was more than just a simple territorial dispute. What the attacking empires didn't realize was that this was exactly the kind of scenario humans had been preparing for. Each provocation was another piece of data, another opportunity to understand their potential enemies. The Kirtal Confederacy believed they were applying pressure. In reality, they were walking into a carefully prepared trap. Days passed. The legal battle continued. Human lawyers and diplomats worked around the clock, picking apart the claims piece by piece. They didn't just defend. They analyzed. They understood the deeper motivations behind the attack. Yuna Kim sat in her command center, watching the data flow in. She saw patterns that others missed. The attack on Epsilon 9 was not just about territory. It was a test. The three empires were probing human defenses, trying to understand their limits. They would soon learn that humans had no limits, only patience. As the first month of the dispute came to a close, the human response was taking shape. It looked like diplomacy. It looked like patience. But those who knew humans best understood the truth. This was preparation. This was strategy. This was war. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a facility so secret that only a handful of people knew its true purpose, Yuna Kim reviewed decades of collected information. The walls around her were not made of metal or stone, but of advanced holographic displays that showed countless streams of data. To understand how humans had prepared, one must look back. It began shortly after first contact with alien civilizations. While the world celebrated peaceful communication, a small group of humans started asking difficult questions. What if peace didn't last? What if diplomacy failed? What if humanity needed to defend itself? The facility where Una worked was the result of those early concerns. It wasn't a military base in the traditional sense. It was a research center, a think tank, and a strategic planning hub all rolled into one. Every piece of information about alien civilizations was collected, analyzed, and stored. Una's computer displayed a timeline. Each alien species humanity had met was mapped out in incredible detail. Their biology, their technology, their cultural weaknesses, their potential strengths. Nothing was left to chance. Take the Kurtal Confederacy, for example. Their metallic skin looked tough, but Una's team had discovered a specific frequency of electromagnetic pulse that could temporarily disrupt their neural networks. The Nexus Dominion believed their cloud-like bodies made them invincible, but humans had developed nanotechnologies that could interact with their molecular structure. Most impressive was the adaptive technology program. Humans had created systems that could rapidly change and respond to different types of threats. It wasn't about having the biggest weapons. It was about being able to create the right weapon at the right moment. In another part of the facility, a team of scientists worked on something that looked like a simple communication device, but it was much more. It could analyze communication patterns, translate languages in real time, and predict potential conflict scenarios with incredible accuracy. Ji-hoon Park's diplomatic missions were not just about solving problems. They were data-gathering operations. Every negotiation, every conversation, every minor interaction was another piece of the puzzle. The team had a saying, "Diplomacy is war by other means." Una remembered her training. Her instructors had been clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology. It was its ability to understand, to adapt, to think beyond immediate problems. The facility had multiple backup plans. If one system failed, another would take its place. If communication networks went down, they had satellite systems. If traditional weapons became useless, they had adaptive technologies that could change at a moment's notice. Outside the facility, the world continued as normal. People went to work. Children went to school. Nobody knew about the complex preparations happening underground. The team had studied every possible scenario. What if alien civilizations attacked Earth directly? What if they targeted human colonies? What if they used biological weapons? What if they tried economic warfare? For each scenario, they had a plan. Not just a simple plan, but layers of plans. Backup plans for the backup plans. Una pulled up a holographic display showing the current situation with the Epsilon 9 colony. The legal battle was just the surface. Underneath, human teams were already preparing defensive measures that no one would see coming. The facility was more than a research center. It was humanity's insurance policy. As she continued to review the data, Una allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy thought humans were nice, peaceful, always looking for a compromise. They had no idea what was coming. The nice humans had been preparing. And when the time came, they would show exactly what they were capable of. The attack came without warning. 15 human colonies were hit simultaneously. There was no diplomatic message, no warning, just sudden, brutal destruction. On Epsilon 9, the first missiles struck at dawn. Families were sleeping. Workers were preparing for another day of mining. Children were getting ready for school. One moment, everything was normal. The next moment, everything was fire and chaos. Lena Park watched from the colony's central command center as the first explosions lit up the sky. Her hands moved quickly across the control panels, but she knew it was too late. The attack was precise, too precise. Across the galaxy, the story was the same. Colonies on the outer rim, places humans had worked hard to build, to make livable, to turn from harsh rocks into homes, were being destroyed. Thousands died in the first hour. At the Galactic Diplomatic Station, Ji-hoon Park received the first reports. His face remained calm, but something changed in his eyes. This was no longer a diplomatic problem. This was an attack on humanity. In the hidden facility deep beneath Earth's surface, Yoon Kim's team was already moving. Protocols that had been prepared for decades were now being activated. Protocols that no one outside their team knew existed. The three attacking empires, the Kurtal Confederacy, the Nexus Dominion, and a crystalline collective, believed they were delivering a knockout blow. They thought humans would respond with more diplomacy, more talking, more trying to understand. They were wrong. Ji-hoon Park activated a communication protocol that looked, to any outside observer, like a standard diplomatic transmission. It was anything but standard. The first sign that something was different came when the attacking ships tried to communicate. Their communication systems went dark, not just jammed, not just blocked, completely and utterly disabled. Then the real response began. Defensive satellites that had looked like simple communication relays suddenly transformed. Their surfaces shifted, revealing weapons systems that were generations ahead of anything the attacking empires had seen. The Kurtal Confederacy's ships, those with metallic skin that had seemed so strong, found their neural networks completely disrupted. Ships that moments ago were attacking now drifted helplessly in space. The Nexus Dominion's cloud-like vessels discovered that their molecular structure could be manipulated by technologies they couldn't understand. Their ships began to break apart from the inside. The crystalline collective's most advanced warships found their complex systems turned against them. Their own weapons began targeting their own fleets. It wasn't a battle. It was a systematic dismantling. Yoon Kim watched the data streams, her fingers moving across holographic displays. Every movement was calculated. Every response was precisely measured. This wasn't about revenge. This was about sending a message. Ji-hoon Park's diplomatic vessel, which looked like a simple communication ship, began broadcasting a message, not a threat, not an angry declaration, just a simple statement of fact. You have made a mistake. The message read, "We tried to help you understand. We tried to show you another way." The human response was swift, but not total. They didn't destroy the attacking empires completely. Instead, they disabled their military capabilities. They showed exactly how much they could do, and how much they were choosing not to do. In the facility beneath Earth, Yoon Kim allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had believed humans were nice, peaceful, unable to fight. They would learn differently now. The nice humans had stopped being nice, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy watched in shock. Humanity's technology was nothing like anyone had expected. What seemed simple was actually complex. What looked weak was incredibly strong. Take the communication satellites that had been floating in space for years. Everyone thought they were just for sending messages. Now, they transformed. Metallic surfaces shifted. Weapons appeared where nothing had been before. These were not just satellites. They were silent guardians waiting for the right moment. Yoon Kim stood in the control center, her hands moving across holographic displays. Each movement controlled systems that the alien civilizations couldn't understand. Nanotechnology began to work its magic across multiple star systems. On the Kurtal Confederacy's main battleship, something strange happened. Their advanced computer systems suddenly displayed human text, not as a threat, not as an attack, just information. Detailed records of every diplomatic meeting, every broken promise, every moment of tension. The ship's systems began to show the Kurtal leaders exactly how their actions looked from a human perspective. It was not an attack. It was a mirror. Nearby, ships from the Nexus Dominion found their weapon systems turning into complex analysis tools. Lasers became information collectors. Missile launchers transformed into communication arrays. The ships could still fight, but now they were also learning. The Crystalline Collective's most advanced warships discovered something even more shocking. Their quantum communication networks, which they believed were completely secure, were now completely visible to human systems. Every secret transmission, every hidden plan, everything was now known. Ji-hoon Park watched from a small ship that looked like nothing special. To any other species, it would seem like a simple diplomatic vessel. But it was much more. The ship could adapt. Its outer hull could change properties in milliseconds. If a laser hit one part, that section would become reflective. If a missile approached, the hull would become soft to absorb the impact, then instantly harden again. Adaptive technology was humanity's real weapon. In space battles, most species relied on fixed technologies. Humans had created systems that could learn and change. A weapon that worked against one ship would not work against the next. Every attack was met with a unique response. The human response was not about destruction. It was about control. They could have destroyed the attacking empires completely. Instead, they chose to show their capabilities. Communication networks across the galaxy began to show strange messages. Not threats, not war declarations, just information. Detailed explanations of why the attacks were wrong. Historical context. Cultural understanding. The Kirtal Confederacy discovered that their most secret military plans were now public, not leaked to their enemies, just revealed to everyone. The Nexus Dominion found their ships communicating with each other in ways they had never designed, sharing information, analyzing conflicts, suggesting peaceful solutions. The Crystalline Collective realized that their most complex encryption systems were now completely transparent. Yoona Kim's team had prepared for this moment for decades. Every piece of technology had multiple purposes. Every system could change. Nothing was what it seemed. "We are not here to destroy." A message broadcast across all communication channels. "We are here to help you understand." The galaxy was learning an important lesson. Humans had not been weak all these years. They had been patient. They had been preparing. And now, they were finally showing what they could do. The nice humans had stopped being nice, but they were still trying to help. Ji-hoon Park became known as the diplomatic executioner, not because he killed anyone, but because he destroyed entire political structures with nothing more than information and understanding. The psychological warfare began quietly. It was not about violence. It was about revealing truth. Every communication network in the galaxy started to change. Humans didn't just block information. They shared it. Completely. Brutally. Honestly. The Kirtal Confederacy's internal communications were the first to crack. Suddenly, every secret message was visible, not just to their enemies, but to everyone. Leaders who had planned the attack on human colonies found their private conversations broadcast across multiple communication channels. One Kirtal military leader had told his closest advisors that the attack on human colonies was just a test, a way to show human weakness. Now that conversation played everywhere. His own words destroyed his reputation. The Nexus Dominion discovered something even more terrifying. Humans had been collecting cultural information for decades. They understood the Nexus Dominion better than the Dominion understood itself. Imagine a species having a complete psychological profile of your entire civilization. Not just basic information, but deep, painful truths, cultural weaknesses, historical traumas, potential future conflicts. Humans didn't use this information as a weapon. They used it as a mirror. Yoona Kim's team had spent years creating systems that could analyze entire civilizations. They understood that true power was not about destroying your enemy. It was about helping them understand themselves. The Crystalline Collective found their most complex encryption systems turning into self-reflection tools. Their communication networks began showing them their own history, every mistake, every moment of potential growth, every chance they had missed to become better. Ji-hoon Park's diplomatic skills became legendary. He didn't negotiate. He helped civilizations negotiate with themselves. In one famous communication, He didn't argue with the Kirtal Confederacy's leaders. Instead, he showed them a complete history of their own conflicts, every war, every mistake, every moment they could have chosen peace but didn't. The message was simple. You have a choice. Psychological warfare is not about creating fear. It is about creating understanding. Humans had been collecting information for years, not to use as a weapon, but to help, to understand, to show potential paths forward. The galaxy began to change, not through force, but through information. Leaders who had planned attacks found their own people questioning them, not because humans told them to, but because humans showed them the truth. The Nexus Dominion's internal structures began to break apart, not from external pressure, but from internal reflection. Their own communication networks became tools of self-examination. The Kirtal Confederacy discovered that their military leadership was more interested in power than in actually protecting their people. This information came from their own messages, their own records. The Crystalline Collective realized that their complex political system was actually preventing them from growing, from changing, from becoming better. Yuna Kim watched all of this from her control center. This was not destruction. This was evolution. Humans had been preparing for this moment for decades, not to win a war, but to help civilizations understand themselves. The nice humans had stopped being nice, but they were still trying to help. And the galaxy was finally starting to listen. The galaxy learned the truth about humans slowly, like a patient teacher explaining something to a confused student. On thousands of planets, leaders gathered. They watched. They listened. They tried to understand what had just happened. The first thing they realized was simple. Humans were not weak. They had been choosing to be peaceful. There was a big difference. Take the Orion cluster, for example. Its leaders met in a massive chamber that floated above a gas giant. Holographic displays showed everything that had happened. The attack on human colonies, the human response, the complete breakdown of 3 major galactic empires. They could have destroyed us, said one leader. Her skin was blue and shifted like water. But they didn't. The information was clear. Humans had technologies that could have wiped out entire civilizations. They had psychological analysis tools that could break apart any political system. They had adaptive weapons that could change faster than any other species could understand. But they chose not to use them completely. On another planet, a group of scientists studied the human technology. They discovered something amazing. The human defensive systems were not just weapons. They were also learning tools, systems that could adapt, systems that could understand. The communication networks humans had used were not just for sharing information. They were for helping species understand themselves. The Kirtal Confederacy was the first to truly understand. Their entire military structure had fallen apart, not from external attacks, but from internal understanding. Their own leaders' conversations had destroyed their political system. The Nexus Dominion discovered that their most secret plans were now public. But humans had not used this information to attack. They had used it to show the Dominion its own potential mistakes. The Crystalline Collective realized that humans had been collecting information for decades, not to use as a weapon, but to understand. Ji-hoon Park became more than a diplomat. He became a symbol of something new, a way of solving problems that no one had seen before. Yuna Kim's team had prepared for this moment for years. They understood that true power was not about destroying your enemy. It was about helping everyone grow. The galactic communication networks began to change. Species that had been enemies for hundreds of years started to talk. Really talk, not just argue, but try to understand each other. Humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had helped the galaxy conquer its own problems. Other species began to study human history. They discovered something interesting. Humans had always been this way: patient, understanding, preparing. When humans first went to space, they didn't go with weapons. They went with communication devices, with tools for understanding, with ways to help other species. The galaxy was learning that being nice was not a weakness. It was a choice, a powerful choice. The human colonies that had been attacked were already being rebuilt, not just by humans, but by species from across the galaxy. Species that now understood what humans had been trying to do all along. Ji-hoon Park gave a speech that was broadcast across thousands of planets. He didn't talk about the attack. He didn't talk about revenge. He talked about understanding, about growing, about choosing a better path. "We are not here to rule," he said. "We are here to help." The galaxy listened. The nice humans had stopped being nice, but they were still trying to help. And now, the galaxy was finally ready to listen. The room was not what anyone expected. It wasn't a grand hall with fancy decorations. It was a simple space with plain white walls. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations sat around a large circular table. Some looked nervous. Some looked confused. All of them were watching Ji-hoon Park and Yuna Kim. "We are not here to punish," Ji-hoon began. His voice was calm, clear, simple. The negotiations were different from anything the galaxy had seen before. This was not about winning or losing. This was about finding a better way forward. Yuna Kim's team had prepared for years. They had studied every possible scenario, every potential conflict, every way civilizations could work together or fall apart. The first rule was simple. Everyone speaks. Everyone listens. The Kirtal Confederacy's representative, a being with metallic skin that used to look tough, now looked tired, defeated, but not by weapons, by understanding. "We thought humans were weak," the representative said. The translation device made the words sound almost sad. "We were wrong." Ji-hoon nodded. He didn't celebrate. He didn't show anger. He just listened. The negotiations were not about punishment. They were about creating a new way of working together. Humans had shown their power. Now they were showing something more important, their ability to help. Each civilization was asked to share its biggest challenges, not its military challenges, its real challenges, the problems that kept its people from growing, from being happy. The Nexus Dominion talked about resource problems. Their society was struggling to feed its people. Humans didn't offer money. They offered solutions, ways to grow food in difficult environments, ways to share resources. The Crystalline Collective discussed their struggle with internal conflicts. Humans didn't give them weapons to fight. They shared communication tools, ways to understand each other better. Yuna Kim's team had prepared maps, not military maps, maps of potential cooperation, ways different civilizations could work together, share knowledge, grow together. The human approach was different. Most species expected complex agreements, long legal documents. Instead, humans offered something simpler. "We can help," Ji-hoon said, "but you must want to help yourselves." The negotiations lasted weeks, but they were not tense weeks. They were weeks of learning, of understanding. Humans shared technologies, not as gifts, as tools for growth, a communication system that could help species understand each other, farming techniques that could grow food in hard places, medical technologies that could help different species heal. The human colonies that had been attacked would be rebuilt, but not just by humans, by everyone. Each civilization was asked a simple question: what do you need to grow, to be better? Some asked for technology. Some asked for knowledge. Some asked for help understanding themselves. Humans had a strange way of solving problems. They didn't just fix things. They helped species fix themselves. The final agreement was not long. It was not complicated. It was simple. Work together. Understand each other. Help each other grow. As the negotiations ended, something changed. The representatives didn't look like enemies anymore. They looked like people trying to solve a problem together. Ji-hoon Park looked at Yuna Kim. They didn't need to speak. They both understood. The nice humans had stopped being nice, but they were still trying to help. And now, the galaxy was ready to help itself. 10 years had passed since the day everything changed. The galaxy looked different now, not because of weapons, not because of war, but because of understanding. Ji-hoon Park sat on a small observation deck, looking out at a space station that used to be just a meeting place. Now, it was something more. A center of real cooperation. Yoona Kim joined him. They didn't need to speak. They just watched. Ships from different civilizations moved around the station, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as partners. The Kirtal Confederacy's metallic vessels flew next to the cloud-like ships of the Nexus Dominion. Crystalline craft moved smoothly between them. Each ship told a story of how things used to be, and how things could be. The human colonies that had been attacked were now thriving. But they were not just human colonies anymore. They were mixed. Different species working together, living together, growing together. A young officer approached Ji-hoon. She was half human, half crystalline. Her skin shifted like water, but had a human shape. This would have been impossible before. "The new research center is ready," she said. Her voice was calm, clear. Ji-hoon nodded. The research center was more than a building. It was a symbol, a place where different species could come together, learn together, solve problems together. Yoona Kim reviewed some data on a small screen. The information showed something amazing. Conflicts across the galaxy had dropped by over 70%, not because of force, but because species were learning to understand each other. The technologies humans had developed were now shared. Communication systems that could help species understand each other. Medical technologies that could heal different types of life. Agricultural systems that could grow food in impossible places. But the real technology was something simple, something that couldn't be measured. Understanding. The galaxy had learned that being nice was not a weakness. It was a choice, a powerful choice. Humans had shown their strength, not by destroying, but by helping, by showing other species their own potential. The Kirtal Confederacy had transformed. Their military was now a research organization. They studied ways to solve problems, not create them. The Nexus Dominion had changed how they made decisions. Now they included voices from many different species, not just their own. The Crystalline Collective had learned to communicate in new ways, ways that helped them understand each other better. Ji-hoon remembered the day everything changed. The attack on human colonies, the response that was not a traditional war, the way humans had chosen to help, not destroy. Yoona Kim's team had prepared for years, not just for a moment of conflict, but for a moment of growth. A message came through on the communication system. A joint mission was being prepared. Species that used to be enemies were now working together to explore a new part of the galaxy. The young officer with the mixed heritage looked out the window. "My parents used to be enemies," she said. "Now they work together." Ji-hoon smiled. This was the real victory. The nice humans had stopped being nice, but they had never stopped trying to help. And now, the galaxy was helping itself. As the sun of a distant star touched the edge of the space station, something became clear. Strength was not about how hard you could fight. It was about how well you could help others grow. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had been the teacher.